അവിടുന്ന് വൈകുന്നേരം മണത്തിയിൽ എന്നെ അവർ
Hey everyone, it's Sam, and welcome back to the 911 Nonsense podcast. To stay in the loop, learn about upcoming guests, and join in the conversations with the Noon community, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And hey, if you like what you hear in this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support means the world to us. In this episode of Noon, we're sitting down with Ryan, a critical care paramedic and firefighter who's truly done it all. From serving as a medic at a JROTC summer camp to flying into Ukraine as a combat medic, Ryan's journey is nothing short of extraordinary. Despite suffering serious injuries in a fire truck accident, his passion for helping others brought him back into the field he loves. Ryan's resilience and dedication shine through this incredible story. Let's get started. All right, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us on the 911 Nonsense podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, dude, I'm super appreciative that you came on. It's been awesome getting to chit chat with you and to get to know you a little bit. I have never met you in my whole life, but I can instantly tell that we would be really good friends if we worked on the ambulance together. And I'm excited to have this conversation with you today. Can we go ahead and get a quick introduction?
Sure. My name is Ryan Cumby. I've been in EMS and fire for about 9 years now. Started in 2015 when I was 19 years old. Right now, I'm a firefighter and paramedic for Madison County Fire Rescue in North Florida. We border Georgia at the very top. Previously, I've been involved in high acuity urgent care, interfacility, 911. I've been deployed to Ukraine before, and I'm also the vice president of an NGO called CMS Safety Services Incorporated.
Wow, you're a busy guy. That's a lot. That is a lot. What is high acuity urgent care? Is that like IFTs or?
Yeah, no, it's something they absolutely made up. We all know the urgent cares, and we kind of lovingly call them pill pushers. You walk in with a stuffy nose, you get a Z-Pack, walk out. And it's usually by, I don't want to say it like this, but I will. It's usually by advanced providers who can't get jobs elsewhere, or they're trying to get their foot in the door. It's not always the highest quality provider you can get a hold of. The high acuity urgent care that I worked for called Emergency Physicians. It's over in Gainesville. They got two centers. Back in the day, there was a hospital called Alachua General. It was the hospital in Gainesville. It was the charity hospital, became a Shands, and then it shut down when two other ones showed up. Well, the chief of the ER had fought and clawed his way to the top, and he was losing his job, and he could kind of restart or move hundreds of miles to find another equal position, or he can make his own practice, and that's what he did. So this high acuity urgent care is UTI, all that kind of stuff. You can come on in. However, you have chest pain basic. We can rule it out. We got troponin, CBC, CMP, lipid profiles. We carry a lot of IV antibiotics, gentamicin, fluoroquinolones, Rocephin. We do a lot more than your typical urgent care. So if you just kind of coined the term high acuity urgent care, there's a lot of things there where we all know that urgent care where a 27-year-old female with perfect vitals and no risk factors has a little bit of chest pain, they freak out and they call 911. And that's largely because they can't do testing.
Right.
They can't know for sure. This high acuity, they'll just keep her for a while and they'll do a troponin series on her. You have a very, very well experienced physician team that's ready to help you out. And there are some very, very intelligent people that he hires. So I worked there and I found it incredibly boring because I used the blood and guts and all that. But the amount I learned in 6 months is insane.
I really think it's kind of sad how people take the IFT or even like urgent care route as like for granted, right? Because I cherish my IFT time on the ambulance because I learned so much, but maybe that was just my perspective and how I took it because I wanted to learn, right? I wanted to learn those meds. I wanted to learn that pathophysiology of what was causing these problems. So I think that sounds like it was a really good opportunity for you. And it sounds like you also took what you needed to take out of it before you got out of there, which is really cool. What was you said NTO? Is that what you said, or NGO? Sorry.
NGO, it's just a non-government organization, so a nonprofit, it's classified as a 501c3.
Okay. And what was that company?
It's called CMS, Safety Services Incorporated. CMS actually doesn't stand for anything. The
Oh,
acronym's cool. It's actually the initials of the founder, Charles Swindle. He's a state trooper in Florida, and what we do is, are you familiar with the JROTC program? Do you have those where you live?
yes. In the high school, yes. You might just explain what it is.
Sure. So back in 1916, I think it is, with the National Defense Act, we made the Reserve Officer Training Corps. It was college-based. We knew that we were going to get into a large European war with very high casualties, and creating an army out of nothing is not easy. You don't have experience, you don't have anything else. So they wanted to create a corps of reserve officers that were trained up and could lead massive enlisted armies. After that, I don't know when it started in high school, but they started sending it to high schoolers who wanted to go on that path. And with the anti-military protests and concerns in the 1970s surrounding the draft and stuff, the motto was actually changed. JROTC is no longer military training. It's more of I think the mission statement is now to motivate young people to be better citizens. So we work on life skills. They taught me how to write a check, how taxes work, all the things that a typical academic school is not going to teach you. We wear the uniforms, we do drill. There's no target shooting, nothing like that. But it kind
That
of
sounds
gives you
amazing.
structure and discipline when you're a young person. And I really enjoyed my time there. I was only there for 3 years out of my 4 years, but I absolutely fell in love with it. And I'm a strong believer in what it can do for young people. So CMS was created to be the medical people for that. They do a summer camp called Junior Cadet Leadership Camp, JCLC. They do it for about a week in the summer. It can be a little bit intense. Most of these kids, they don't go outside and play that much. They go out in the heat. They're wearing military uniforms. They're running obstacle courses, doing rappel towers. The entire idea is to make them as uncomfortable as possible and to teach them how to overcome that. So you're thrust into a group with a bunch of people you don't know, um, and you're told, all right, you're given a mission, you're given a leadership structure, like figure it out. Quote the knife hand.
That's
um,
crazy.
so we do all the medical for that. It started with just Chucky. This is a camp of over 300 cadets. It was 400 at one
Wow.
point where they kind of split it up. If you have 75 kids running an obstacle course and then you have other ones doing rappel tower, you stay busy.
Yeah.
So he spent the entire day running to call to call to call to call, and then expanded to two people, and then him and a buddy and four people, one for each company, and now it's expanded to more than 20 people. We do two per company, a male and a female. ROTC is almost 100%. Well, it is 100% gender integrated, but it's almost 50-50 male female now, which is uncharacteristic of paramilitary organizations.
Yep.
So we do two medics, one male, one female. You have a female problem, you're always welcome to talk to a female. Most little girls are not going to be comfortable walking up and being like, "I'm having my period for the first time. Can I have a pad?"
Yep.
Which is understandable. I'm 6'3", 260 pounds. I wouldn't want to talk to me either. um, so he does that, and I started as a normal medic, and then I moved up to lead company medic, and then now I'm the medical supervisor of the companies. We have another detachment which does water distribution stuff too. But I am now the second in command, which is the vice president of that organization.
That's really cool. So are you still treating when you go as a vice president, or are you higher up and you're
Uh,
out of patient care?
Absolutely. I'm involved in patient care. I don't get to do as much as I used to because, we are a 501(c)(3). We have a medical director. However, we have a complement of everything from cops, the nurses, the medics and stuff. Having the ALS equipment that we are accustomed to is very cost prohibitive. So 90% of what we do is prevention. Make sure you drink your water, checking blisters before they get to bad ones. It's a lot of preventative stuff, and the medics form a relationship with these kids. They get to know them, their strengths, their weaknesses, their needs, their wants. So I did that for 5 or 6 years, and I still know cadets, and cadets have even gone into EMS and come back to help out with it.
That's really cool.
But we say anything more than a band-aid because protocols have to be written for the least certified and least knowledgeable person in the room. That's just how it works. I can't take someone who's an EMR and be like, "Oh, you can just rule out chest pain." You can't do that.
Yeah.
So we say anything more than a band-aid, I get called. I'll go to them, check them out, and if I need help, I'll call the medical director down there. Is it okay if I talk about the medical director a little bit as an attaboy?
Yeah.
So his name is Joshua Dietzer. He is actually a family medicine doctor that works only in the ER. I don't know how that worked out. I know he did family medicine. He's like, fuck this, I'm out. Um, I don't know why he ever did because he was a volunteer firefighter for Alachua County, one of the outlying stations. He's still a reserve firefighter for Hillsborough County Fire Rescue. He's the associate medical director of EMS for Pasco, and he's on the USAR team. So when Turkey had their horrible earthquakes, he went out there. He loves being in the field. He likes getting his hands dirty, and he's a family medicine doctor. He's also a trauma doctor up in Columbus, Georgia. I think they have a level 2 center up there. He's just an incredible guy. He's very selfless. If you have a good relationship with him, uh, me personally, I can do a lot of things. He wasn't there yet, and one of our medics, when we say medics, keep in mind we mean on the medical staff. We don't mean
Mm-hmm.
paramedic. He came out as labor pretty much to help us move water. Super nice guy. He had COPD and he had pneumonia and didn't know it. Well, some rain fell. He walked down the humid air and it just triggered an attack.
Yeah.
I heard expiratory wheezing. I gave albuterol. I gave all the things. We called EMS. He got transported. And if anyone else had done that, they would have been fired on the spot. um, just because, the liability standpoint.
Sure.
Um, and I called him and I was like, hey, doc, sorry to wake you up. He worked night shifts. I was like, just so you know, I did this, I did that. And he looked at the phone and he goes, okay. And do you need help with? I'm like, no, no, no. I'm just letting you know. I had to give albuterol to someone for the first time in 7, 8 years, and he goes, "You're a critical care paramedic. Don't call me with this shit again." And he just hung up on me.
That's funny. It's nice to have that relationship with providers when you can just kind of get away with doing whatever you want to do because they trust your treatment.
Yeah, he's an amazing physician, very selfless. So I just wanted to give him an attaboy. He does get a check from us to provide those services. As far as I know, he doesn't take a cent of it. He just puts it back in the program. He doesn't need it. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, you don't see that very often. And we're in such a position these days where, people need the money that they're making. So it's really cool that he does that.
absolutely.
So what are you doing currently?
I'm a firefighter paramedic for Madison, and I work on the ambulance, just on the ambulance for right now. It's a very, I don't want to say young department. They integrated only about 6 years ago. So they're having a lot of growing pains between fire and EMS. So I don't have gear yet. They're still trying to work on that. So right now I'm on the ambulance. I am paid as a firefighter paramedic, but until I get gear, I can't do my fireside orientation. So no fighting fire, but I work pretty much on the ambulance on a
Do you
911 truck, and we do 911 and IFT.
did you work for a third party service at all?
I have.
Okay, so do you think it's better to work in the integrated firefighter EMS system, or do you think that EMS should just be a completely separate system?
When it's financially feasible, it should always be third party. We are not firefighters, they are not paramedics. And I do know a handful of people who can do both really well. I always introduce myself as a paramedic over a firefighter because that's just what I know. If it's financially feasible, they should always be separated. However, these small counties in Florida cannot afford it. We just
Sure.
cannot. So we do integrate. There's always problems when you integrate. Um, but I think with the right attitude and the right leadership, I don't think it's much of a problem.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I agree. I think it mostly should be third party. It's hard. I mean, we here there's a two-tier system, so the ambulance responds and then you have a fire rescue that responds, and if the call warrants it, then an engine crew will also respond. But I think having that third party, and I mean, the sheer number of 911 calls that we have out of this state is absolutely insane. So we need that number of ambulances, and we also need that number of pararescues that we have, paramedic
Hmm.
rescue fire departments that we have. It's tough when you're so short staffed.
It's very tough.
You actually just dealt with a hurricane and then dealt with a second hurricane yesterday. Is that correct?
Yep, and we're possibly looking at a third forming up right now.
Oh my gosh. Were you part of the response team, or was there any consideration to get out of Florida?
I've always been involved in, the healthcare emergency side, so leaving has never been an option for me, unfortunately. My parents live in a very well-built house. We are decently far enough from the coastline. I mean, sorry, they are decently far enough from the coastline that even if a category 3 or 4 were to hit directly on top, there wouldn't be much of a concern for the structure of the house. They would be safe. They'd be more concerns about making sure my father gets his blood thinners, and medication, food, and water supply. That'd be the big concern.
Sure.
Um, but leaving has never really been an option. I should say we've had three hurricanes. Because when I started August 1st, and in August 1st we had a tropical storm. I think it was Debbie. There's been so many. Debbie, I was trying to do orientation during that. That was going very poorly, because you're doing storms and you're also trying to orient a new guy. It sucks.
Yeah.
And then the last one, Hurricane Helene that we had, I was activated for 6 days. Fortunately, the strike teams came in clutch and helped us out a lot. But the first 24, 48 hours, you're kind of on your own, and it sucks a lot. Nonstop calls, getting people out of their homes into care facilities if they need to, helping with evacuations. The hospital lost water for a while, so we started evacuating them. And this is a pretty small hospital. It's a rural based one from the 1930s, I think.
Wow.
But you'd be surprised, when you have four ambulances. And when I say ambulances, I don't mean crews. I mean we have four fucking vehicles that we can use, and if one goes down, yeah. I think we can put a fifth one on. Just ignore the burning oil smell.
Yeah.
But trying to get them evacuated and then being like, oh no, we have water, we can go back, and it just, oh, that sucked.
Yeah.
This third one, we were very lucky. It went down more towards South Florida. It was a little bit smaller than the last one. I think I maybe got some tropical force winds here at my house. I live about 60 miles south of my department. So, they got pretty much nothing. We never activated or anything for them.
That's good.
But that would be the third hurricane and/or tropical storm that we've had in Florida in about 2 months.
So I've been seeing a lot of I live in New Mexico, and we don't get a whole lot of storm weather out here. We get some stuff, but it's pretty secure out here. Um, I've seen a lot of nurses and EMTs complaining about how they're having to go into work like continuously. So when you say that you got activated for 6 days, were you on all 6 days?
Yes.
So you were just running 24/7 and it didn't matter.
24/7 didn't matter, no breaks. And that's partially because we didn't have other ambulances. We had
Sure.
more than enough firefighter EMTs, firefighter medics, single cert EMTs. We have because of how our engines work, it is heavily filled with part-timers.
Sure.
So we had more than enough part-timers that came in. We had nowhere to put them, but there was nowhere else. There was no more ambulances, so they were put on to fire engine stuff. I cannot be swapped out because I don't have my fire
Gear.
my fire gear and everything. And a lot of the people, I would say a majority of the people on the EMS side are single certed. So there is no break because there's no trucks, and there's not a lot of versatility in swapping around.
And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you weren't receiving any type of hazard pay either.
Oh hell no,
Yeah. Mm.
no. I got time and a half.
Woo!
I was already on time and a half anyway, but whatever.
I was going to say you were either on overtime already or you were just getting it. So that's pretty shitty. That
Yeah.
sucks. It's hard because people don't understand, and then you're just told, well, this is what you signed up for. Just do it. Just suck it
Yeah,
up and
and
do it.
I've had those arguments with a lot of people like, well, that's the job you signed up for. I'm like, yes, I did. I get it. I'm dumb. Stop. Thank you. I appreciate it. And the big concern with Helene is because we took a almost direct hit with Helene,
Mm-hmm.
and my parents live in a very sturdy site built home. I live in a 1993 double wide trailer that no company in the right mind will insure. If this house goes, that's it. So I'm sitting there working, stressing, is my house going to be there when I get back? And
Yeah.
fortunately, the house is okay. Every other structure on my property was blown down.
Holy cow, man. And so I'm glad you brought up the insurance thing. That was something that I had read about the other day. It's really hard to get your house or anything insured in Florida, right? Because of the number of hurricanes that are hitting.
Number of hurricanes, the probability that it'll be blown over or whatever else, and we always see a spike in rates after these big storms happen. I don't remember the company, but I know when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, I think it was '05. um, the company pretty much said we don't have money. Like we the number of homes that were destroyed or flooded or what, we don't have the money, and people were just not being paid, and that had to go to court, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was that bad. It's like being self-insured. It works for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty bad. So here we do have some good building regulations. If your mobile home has been moved after a certain amount of time, it requires what we call tie downs, which means that it's harder to blow away pretty much.
Hmm.
My mobile home has been moved once before I owned it. It was before that requirement, and insurance rates also go into has your mobile home been moved? Well, if it has, I don't know the exact reason of it, but it makes it harder to insure. I don't know if it has to do with possible damage when moving it or the house sale. I don't know how that works, but I do know that this mobile home has been moved once before. It doesn't have the tie downs, and I got a quote a while ago to insure my house for about $800 a month. That the house is not worth $800. It's just not.
That is disgusting, dude.
Yeah, and now we're at the point where homeowner insurance was already increasing in Florida long before these storms. It was going up exponentially, and now these companies are like, not happening, bro. And I'm like, okay, I get it.
I get it. I pay renter's insurance. You want to know how much I pay a month?
It's gonna make me mad.
It's gonna piss you off so bad. I pay $17 a month.
$17, yeah, I gotta move.
Yeah. So that being said, do you plan on staying in Florida? Like with all of this nonsense?
I wouldn't move just because of hurricanes. I was born and raised in Florida, born and raised in the same small town I currently live in. It's a fact of life. I know how to prepare for them. Like, hurricanes coming, everyone's like, "Oh my God, get bottled water." I filled up. Actually, I'll show you right here.
I see your toilet paper.
Don't judge me on that. All right, I bought it after.
I'm not.
I just got a Gatorade cooler to like $30, $40. I use it all the time. It's 5 gallons of drinking water. Like, all right, fine.
It's better to be prepared. I've heard
Right.
too that you should like fill your bathtub with water. Do you do that?
I don't have a bathtub, so no.
Oh,
Yeah, I got 2 showers.
dude, I'm not gonna judge you about your toilet paper though, because there was a while, and I don't know if this was like a nationwide thing or if it was just a state thing, but there was a while during COVID where you could not buy toilet paper anywhere because people were just fucking buying it up.
Yeah, it happened here too. I went there and I looked. I'm like, there's no toilet paper. You guys left everything else but the toilet paper, not food, not like you guys would be locked in your houses for months and you got fucking toilet paper, not food.
Yep.
And then I was like, all right, well, I'll go get some baby wipes, and they were almost sold out. And now, like the baby wipes I'm buying, I'm now baby's ass ain't gonna be clean. I'm like, great, that's fantastic. Like,
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't even get that. I'm not gonna lie, there was a couple weeks where we used fucking paper towels because we literally had nothing else. It was fucking nuts.
it's crazy. Like rationing certain things, like we've been rationing gasoline in Florida, makes perfect sense. It's limited supply. You can get $50 at a time. That's usually more than adequate for a small car. A lot of us drive trucks. I do, and that'll give me about 2/3 of a tank. I get that. Okay, we're all burning it up. Fucking toilet paper, people. We make it in the U.S. It's what are you doing? And then there's another scare with the port shutting down, and Florida is very big on trade, like international water trade. People started buying it again. I'm like, what the fuck, people? We're not. Okay.
I remember when the port stuff
I
was
actually
going
bought this
on.
today. In
Oh,
my defense,
okay.
I bought that today, and that's why still I haven't put it away yet.
Okay, I'll give you that. But I was gonna tell you, good on you for like preparing in advance,
Yeah, right.
having that just in case you absolutely need it. You just never know. I can kind of tell by talking to you that you're a little bit of a history buff. Is that accurate?
That is true. Yeah, I like history.
I can tell by the way you passionately talked about JROTC and the history on that. So that's really cool. So what made you decide to do EMS?
This is our first traumatic story of the night. So, because of ROTC, I had just taken a CPR first aid course, like bare bones, taught by someone who's done it. Like, he was a military policeman in the army, and that was like 15 years before I took his course. So, he hadn't touched a patient, I don't know how long. I was surprised he wasn't telling us, put them on their stomach, put a finger up their asshole to make them gasp and pull the arms. Like, that, yeah.
Yeah.
So I took that course. 2 weeks later, my family we were not broke, but we were just over that threshold of like food stamps and Medicaid and all that kind of stuff. I was on Healthy Kids, which is a
So
subsidized Medicaid plan when I was growing up.
lower middle class is where we all sit
Lower
at
middle
right
class,
there, right? Yeah.
right? I never went without anything. Of course, my parents took good care of that, but we stretched the dollar as much as we could. So, my father retired from the prison system. He worked for Department of Corrections in 03, 04, somewhere around there. Um, and then his retirement plus my mom's income as an office manager just wasn't that great. He had gone to work part time doing some stuff, but he had two replaced hips, two replaced knees. Like he did not need to be outside doing a lot of things, and his manual skill his skill set wasn't there. Like if you
Hmm.
need someone shot, that's the guy, but that's about it. Um, I hate to say it that way, but you can't even shoot people if you can't get the fuck off the couch.
Yep.
So we had disability payments going, and at the local church, it was under my mom's name. So, and this is years ago. So anyone listening to this that wants to report to the IRS, go fuck yourself. It was 10 years ago. Um, on my mom's side, the church was paying her a certain amount to clean the church and do the yard. And my dad could do the mower, but he really didn't need to be walking around doing the weed eater. So I would go out when I was 14, 15, and he would pay me a little bit, and I would help him weed eat and blow the sidewalks and all that. Well, he also has pretty bad asthma that he developed after retiring. We think it was possibly exposure to stuff in the army, where we can't prove anything, unfortunately. And we get asthma, but readily fixed with an inhaler or whatever. So he started having a hard time breathing, and I said, "Should we just go back to the house and get your inhaler?" He goes, "No, no, it'll pass." I'm like, "All right, be stubborn." So I've got my hearing protection on, blowing off the sidewalk, and I turn around. He had been mowing. All I see in the distance, about 50, 75 yards away, is he's turned off the mower. He's getting up and getting off the mower, which is weird because it's down a hill. And I'm like, well, he can't really walk uphill well, so what's he doing? And then he kind of like sits down, which this man does not sit on the ground because the motherfucker's not going to get up. He sits in a
Yeah.
chair, or that's it. He sits on the ground. He just kind of slumps over.
Oh no.
So somehow at 15 years old, I didn't freak the fuck out. Called 911. Ambulance starts coming. We were in the southeastern part of the county, which I think Med 2, which serves the area, was already out on the call. So we're 15, 20 minutes from an ambulance from EMS, and it came out as not a crazy call, shortness of breath, but no color change, able to talk, just okay, whatever. They sent an ambulance. Within about 5 or 10 minutes, he's gasping on the ground. He stops breathing. Um, so I totally forget CPR, call them back. Of course, it jumps to another county, who then has to transfer me back to my county. Gotta love small town EMS shit.
Yep.
And when this happened, I put her on speaker and I started compressions. Keep in mind, this is a big man. This is not some little meemaw where you can just break your chest. This is quite some effort. And you're doing compressions, your heart rate's getting up really high. You were just doing yard work. You're freaking out. And then it was the same dispatcher. Her name was Robin. Amazing dispatcher. I actually met her later on when I entered EMS myself. I told her what was going on. CPR was in progress and all that. We did not have E&D at that point, so she couldn't even really guide me.
Oh wow.
I'm doing that. And then maybe 30, 45 seconds. It felt like an hour, but maybe 30, 45 seconds later, he does that again. So never was probably Charlie cardiac arrest, probably respiratory arrest,
Oh yeah.
and just kind of stimulated something. And then he comes to very, very altered, this and that. Looking back on it with the knowledge I have now, he's probably very acidic from respiratory acidosis. Um, the funny thing that I did, because I went through my first aid safety checklist, and they always say treat for shock, loosen, tighten clothing. So on his overalls, the things to just unsnap, I cut them off. I don't know why. I just panicked.
That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I panicked, and I told the dispatcher like, "All right, I cut his overalls off," and she goes, "Okay." Bless her
Okay.
heart. So EMS got there. They did send a volunteer BLS squad as well to help out. And they get there, and I remember the guy, name was Greg Peeler, an amazing EMT I got to work with later on as partner. He's like, "Okay, can you tell me his date of birth?" And that's when I snapped. I just crying, heaving, bubbling mess after that.
Oh
And then I shit you not, he signed a refusal.
my God, dude.
No shit.
How is that even allowed? Did he come to enough to be able to sign
He
a
he
refusal?
he came to enough. When they got there, they see a guy on the ground having a hard time breathing. They sat him up. and they were giving him epidural treatments. And I like to brag that this county Gilchrist has always been pretty progressive in medicine. This is 2011, back when, I mean, people still do it, where they snatch and grab respiratory patients and they just
Yeah.
start going, and we know it doesn't always go well, especially if they're on their last reserve.
Yeah.
They sat and treated him right there in place. They did albuterol. They were doing IM shots of like solumedrol. Someone started mag, all this stuff. He recovered enough. He is ANO times four. He had capacity. He vehemently refused. And they're sitting here looking at him like, your son did compressions. And he's like, that's fine.
It's good. Oh my goodness, dude.
Probably did really shitty bystander CPR. Probably wasn't even bruised, looking back on it. But I mean, like,
We all
this
got
man
to
is
learn
so stupid.
sometime.
Yeah, he had a TIA when I was in paramedic school, and he tried to refuse, and I cussed him out on the phone. And I said, "You get that fucking ambulance right now. I'm gonna come down there and beat the shit out of you." and and then I get to the hospital, and the neurologist is talking to the hospitalist. I mean, is talking to him about why he's being admitted. He's like, I'm not being admitted." And I walked in there, and I was like, "Look, I will beat the fuck out of you so bad you get transferred for trauma."
That's so funny.
and
Oh my
and
gosh.
he's like, "You can't talk to me that way." I'm like, "If you can get out of the bed, you can hit me in the face." And he couldn't get out of the bed. I was like, "All right, fine, sounds good."
Great, you can't argue.
And my mother looked at me and she said, "You're just as bad as he is. You know that?" I was like, "Yes, ma'am."
That's so funny. What a stubborn guy, I can tell. You'll probably be like that too. So how bad, like, how did that affect you moving forward? So that could have gone one of two ways. That could have just completely destroyed you and you said, like, fuck medicine. I never want to do that in my whole life. Or you turned around and you said, that's what I want to do. I made a change. I did something. I'm going to continue to do this. I want to know more.
Definitely the latter. I started being that kid that, we would go off and do ROTC meets. I somehow convinced the Army instructor to let me carry the first aid kit, and I felt like hot shit doing that. It's a shitty EMT BLS bag, really faded, the letters falling off. We had like a SAM splint and, some slings in there. And I was like, I'm hot shit. I'm going to carry this around. I'm going to feel.
Yeah.
um, so I went through high school, like, all right, that was scary, but I held it together and I was pretty good at it. So, well, why don't we do that as a career? So I was looking at combat medic in the Army, 68 whiskey, and I had had a lot of friends that had gone in the military and some very mixed reviews. Some people were like, I absolutely love my job, and a lot of them were like, this is bullshit. I cannot wait to get out. So even as a younger person, I was very lucky to not be that one that leaped before I looked. So I was like, well, if I'm going to do this for 4 straight years, let me get a taste of it first. And I didn't want to pay for EMT medic school because, again, I'm going to be $2,000 in, hate my job.
Yeah. It's
So I
expensive.
did volunteer firefighter in the county. They pay for everything. You get your fire one, EMR, you back up paramedics and all that, and you first respond. But it's free. I did not want to do the fire portion, but because I even did a ride along when I was 18 with EMS. And when the calls we got, I didn't realize how lucky I was either to see a structure fire on an EMS ride along, and I was like, I am never doing that. That's so stupid. 8 months later, I'm doing push-ups for being a dumbass in fire school.
Yep. I mean, it
Um,
happens.
yeah, so I did my fire one. I absolutely loved fire and EMS, and I was like, well, I went and got my fire two, my EMT. I went paid, um, and then I just started a career as a firefighter EMT and just moved up.
It sounds like you had a really good head on your shoulders at a young age. Like you talk about really thinking about it. And I'll tell you, when I was 18, a very long time ago, um, I got into the fire department and my thought was, well, that sounds like a cool career. And it was something I'd always thought about doing when I was little, but it wasn't like I didn't train for it or anything. I played in basketball, so I had a good workout ethic. I had a good, mindset, but it was something that I just knew I was going to do because my dad was a cop, so I thought maybe I'll go cop. And I was like really close to taking my ASVAB test for the military and took the test for the volunteer fire department and got in with the volunteer fire department. So I decided to go that route, and that's what got me started into my EMT side. And I'll tell you what, I loved going into structure fires. I
Oh yeah.
love that shit.
I still love it, dude. Oh my gosh. I'm like, oh, I'm a paramedic, but I am the person that's fist fighting you on scene for the nozzle. I am.
Yep.
You
Yep.
you put it down, I will pounce on it and rip it away from you. I don't care if there's water in that bitch or not. Let's go.
Yeah, it is the best spot to be in. One of the best things about the fire department too, I think, in my opinion, is the jokes. Like you just have such a great camaraderie in a lot of fire departments. Did you guys ever do any jokes on each other?
Oh yeah. I want to point out I did not participate because I was a probie and I'm like, I ain't doing that shit. And this is not the current chief, it's the old chief, so I can talk about it. We had had a structure fire. He had hopped in to help out, small department, he was helping us do overhaul. And he was getting a shot at the station later. And I don't know who felt comfortable enough doing this, but they hit him with the CO2 extinguisher in the shower.
That's messed up.
Yeah, now it was from a distance. There was no frostbite, but he felt it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He felt it. I just heard a scream, and I'm like, mm-mm, mm-mm. I got up and walked out. I was like, I am not part of this shit.
That's when you just go line up on the wall and put your hands up like I was not part of this.
Dude, I was such a fuck up in fire academy. They would start walking up to me. I'm like, I got it. I would just start doing burpees. And I'd be like, let me know when to stop. I don't know what I did, but I got you. I got you, Cap. Like,
That's funny. Are you preferring the EMS side? Like I know you're ready to go fire and you're excited, you just don't have your gear, but do you have a preference?
EMS all the way,
All the way, huh?
all the way, 100%. If I had to give up one right now, fire would be gone.
That's funny.
I would be sad. I would be sad. But if I had to choose one or the other, maybe it's because I don't do fire enough. Small rural counties don't get a lot of fires like some places. Florida also doesn't get a lot of fires because we have much newer building construction. We tend to go out, not up. So when you have places like Chicago, Boston, Baltimore, when something catches on fire, like we're not talking about a single family residence that's insured. We're talking about an apartment home or an entire block of the city goes down. So you constantly are running calls. You're being much more aggressive because there's so much more at stake. So I think that if I was in a really big, busy, very fire-oriented department, I may have a much different opinion. But because I simply don't do it enough, I often forget what it feels like to put out a house fire.
That totally makes sense. You're a very straight-headed level guy. I get that.
You say that.
I mean, I can tell. I've only known you for 30 minutes, but like
Yeah.
it seems like it. What's your favorite EMS call to run on? What's your bread and butter?
Uh, Airway, all day, airway.
Airway. That's like the paramedics' answers. Airway.
Yeah, COPD. Well, I like doing the ones that terrify people. I like pediatric airway.
Oh yeah, you're crazy.
Yeah, because well, I mean, kids respond to MAG a little bit better. They are usually fixed much more easily than COPD. I can take an entire pack of albuterol and throw it at the COPD patient and it won't do shit sometimes.
Yeah.
They don't they're too stiff.
Yeah.
Kids tend to do a lot better with it. Kids don't usually have the comorbidities that adults do. Like if I give this, I'm going to mess up their beta blocker and blah blah blah. So I think it intimidates people because we don't do it a lot, and there's that emotional connection with, if
Mm-hmm.
I fuck up, a kid dies, not an old person that's lived their life, but a little kid dies or has a bad outcome. But in my opinion, kids are actually a little bit simpler. And while it's daunting, I mean, they're simpler. They have fewer disease processes that it can be. I'm not worried about giving too much fluid to a kid and causing pulmonary flash edema from the CHF they have. There are definitely a lot of kids out there that are very, very sick and complex, but not the majority of 911 cases. So, pediatric asthma, epiglottitis, croup terrifies everyone, and I'm like, watch this shit, and it goes away. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if the kid is like they're really sick, so they allow you to do the treatment, then it works
yeah,
a
yeah,
lot
and
better. It's
people are terrified. I don't want to upset them. I was like, fuck it, they're about to die. Do something. And
yeah.
so I enjoy lecturing on pediatric airway a lot.
Yeah, that's great. We need people like you. There's too many. We're all afraid of pediatric, and for the reasons that you said, where it is a kid, you don't want to fuck up a kid, right?
Hmm.
But there's also a lot of people who correlate that kid's age to their own kid's age, and that I think messes them up internally too because they start comparing.
Absolutely. And I don't have kids, so not something that affects me that much. But with CMS, I work around teenagers a lot, so the age that upsets me the most when I work on them is like 13 to 18 or 13 to 21, really, because that's the age of the kids that I know, I have relationships with. I get to know them, watch them grow up, become adults. An 8-year-old, nah, fuck that kid, but make another one.
Are you? God damn it. Oh, that's so funny. So are you guys, just as a state protocol question, are you guys allowed to intubate kids?
Absolutely.
You say absolutely. So here in the state that I'm in, we're actually well, I've been out of the 911 system for a few years now. And when I was in the system, I think it's still true, but they actually pulled intubation skills away from less than 8. So we
I
can't
gotcha.
intubate kids unless you're critical care. So like I can intubate a kid at my critical care licensure level, but for the 911 emergency paramedics and firefighter medics, they're not allowed to intubate.
I gotcha. Yeah. It's really interesting how that comes down from the States. So Florida's very hands off when it comes to EMS. They have not updated what we have to carry on an ALS vehicle since 2009.
Wow.
Um, but I've never known any agency, even a shithole IFT, to do just a bare minimum. Like intraosseous is not required to have. I've never met a department that does not carry it.
Yeah.
It just it's not thought of. Critical care is also not recognized in Florida. It's an employer requirement. So legally, I, as a single cert medic, whatever, can go hop in a helicopter and give blood in Florida because critical care is not a thing in Florida. As a paramedic, I can get blood, I can do nicardipine, I can do A lines, central lines, everything. Now, your medical director is not going to let you do that if you're just an 911 medic doing a 5-minute transport. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of times they'll say, me as an employer, you have to take a critical care class and you have to get your FPC or the equivalent or whatever to do these skills. But pretty much I can do damn near anything a doctor lets me to do. I can do physicals for kids if I'm taught how to do it. I can do blood if I'm taught how to do it proficient. Now, of course, if I, get blood and there's a reaction and it goes to court or whatever, they're going to say, a typical paramedic cannot do this. Why can't you? I can show them, well, here, I've taken my critical care and we had a 16-hour on course on blood. Um, so you just have to back up that education, that back up your intervention with the education. So Florida is very lucky in the sense that the state's very hands off, and the medical director is what decides what you can and cannot do.
That's insane.
Yeah,
That's
and it
actually
lets you
really cool.
it lets you and it lets you attenuate what is appropriate and what is not. Florida's so diverse, and our urbanization and rural areas. Like you go down south, like Miami, you go for a Saturday morning run, you're going to cross 2 or 3 trauma centers.
Yeah.
Um, you go to where I'm at, the closest level 2 trauma center is an hour away. The nearest level 1 is an hour and 30 minutes away with burn. So how much you do depends on the medical director. The inner city medics are not likely to do as much as I can, and the rural agencies ironically pay more than the inner city ones, which is really ironic. It used to be like if you wanted to be a good paid firefighter paramedic and do fires and stuff, you had to go down south. Now we have people from down south coming up here because we pay 10, 15 grand more a year than what they do for a similar shift.
Wow. That's crazy. Do you guys have a huge or a decent flight service out there?
Yeah, we have an absolutely amazing one, mostly run by Chance Care. There's some other subsidiaries in there. Like when it comes to healthcare, like we're owned by these people, and our parent company is owned by their parent company, and their parent company is owned by their parent. Like it gets really confusing. But Shands puts on a lot of helicopters around the area, or Shands affiliated ones. So like Lima Charlie, Lake City is Lima Charlie. The trauma ones are partially run by Shands. Sometimes, like if you get a flight, if you're flight flighted out, you'll get a bill from MedTrans, which owns the helicopter and the pilot, and then Shands Care staffs it. It's kind of confusing, but Shands is a well-known system in Florida, a big competitor with, like, say, HCA and Advent, and they do a lot of flight medicine, um, and they do a lot of ground critical care as well. But our flight people are absolutely phenomenal. They do A lines, central lines. They can do escherotomies. They can do blood. They carry blood, which is a huge benefit to rural areas.
No, that's really, really cool. And it's great to hear that it sounds like you have a lot of the tools necessary for what you need to perform your job, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. Now that I've been doing this for a couple of years, someone that I knew from a neighboring agency, Levy, he now worked for Flight. I ran into him at the station 3 nights ago. He was just come by doing PR stuff, so he's coming by and be like, "Hey, we're going to do a class. What do you want to learn about? You want to learn how to do an LZ? Do you want to do some difficult airway classes? We have the nasty mannequins with all the gunk and shit in it. We can do that. Um, we have resources where if I want to go do cadavers, I can go do cadavers. They'll fly us. We can fly out to Maryland, well, for a price, but
Yeah.
a very reasonable price where we say real life dead people because Maryland has loose cadaver laws. I'll put it like that. If you're not claimed, it's the states, and the state will do what it wants with it.
That's crazy. Holy smokes.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
We're very respectful to the cadavers. We are very appreciative. We're very respectful of the bodies we work on. But went down there, they had 6 people that were alive 18 hours before. They're still juicy. They're still perfusing.
That is
Um,
fucking nuts, dude.
the alveoli are still throwing oxygen into
Holy
hemoglobin. I mean, like it's fucking nuts.
cow.
So we just went to town. We did a shoulder cut down. We did simple thoracostomies. We decompressed. I mean, we just fucking hammered the shit out of these cadavers. And when one's all used up, we just went ahead and did an autopsy on it.
That's crazy. I think I've talked about this before, but my first like cadaver lab experience was getting to watch one of my old partners do a chest tube. And really respectful of the body, like what a great company, what a great couple of guys to come in and do this, and allowing me to watch it was really cool. But that really fucked me up when I went into my OMI, so my Office of Medical Investigations section of the paramedic class. Like this was something I fought for because I really believed in going and doing it and getting to see the anatomy and being really involved. So we got to do it, and I think ours was one of the last classes that got to do it, our paramedic class. But dude, that fucked me up because we walked in and I don't know, like I get that this is their job and shit, but they were being rough with the bodies, like just really like it was so opposite of what I had seen and what I'd gotten to see done and performed, and it was like distressing to me, and I just thought I will never do this for that reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't blame you. I will say the most disrespectful thing that I saw, University of Maryland Shock Trauma Center, and of course the morgue's in the basement, like typical hospital. It's creepy as shit down there.
Yeah, yeah.
Was he had a Mac 4 in the patient's mouth, and then he goes, "Oh, hang on," and he goes, "Can you hold that for me? Thanks, babe." He just walked away, and the Mac, I'm like, that was the worst thing I saw. They gave us a
Oh,
they gave us a whole brief beforehand. They're like, "Look, these people have either donated their bodies to science or they were homeless and they were on the street and they didn't get claimed and the city was going to bury them in a pine box somewhere. So if I see anyone being in any way disrespectful to these cadavers, you will be excused from the course.
yeah, no, that's fantastic to hear. This is just like the OMI people that worked, like they do autopsies all day long. They do it for the amount of bodies that they have
Yeah,
for that day. Like, I get it. I do get it. But
it's
it
distressing
was
though.
just, it was very distressing. I was like when they have a little block that they put underneath their head to keep their head up so that they can cut the skull cap off and check the brain if they need to do that. When they're done at the end, they just pop the block out and let the person's head hit the table, or like when they're sliding the patient onto the table, they're basically just tilting it up enough for them to physically slide and smack the table. It was nuts, dude. It was not a
Ugh.
great it was not a great experience, but it's been a few years and I've lucid about it a few times, so we're
Yeah.
so what would you say? It sounds like you have a lot of great experience and you've done a lot of really cool things. What would
Yeah.
you say is probably one of like the coolest thing that you've gotten to do? Like what's the proudest moment in your career?
Oh my gosh. Probably one of the coolest things that the people that are really well meaning that say thank you for your service,
Yes.
and it's so fucking uncomfortable.
Yes.
Yeah, so I will say I'm lucky to come from an area that's pretty pro first responder. I actually got to the point where I did not want to go to the local grocery store for groceries for the department because people would just randomly say, "Thank you for your service." I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm not in the military. I'm like, if you care about my service, pay your fucking taxes." I don't know, like,
Yeah.
but one of the coolest things that ever happened was this lady. She's at least in her 80s, and she's a bagger at the grocery store, and I did not even put two to two together that she was there a week or two ago. Her son was working on a cow, got knocked over, and the cow trampled him, like took a hoof right to the middle of his sternum.
Wow. Ooh.
So broke his sternum, broke some ribs. He was also a smoker, which is a little bit of a comorbidity with pneumos and all that. I was a brand new paramedic. Like I think I was still in orientation for my department, and I walked in and I saw him on his knees gasping. So I grabbed a needle decompression and I walked in there and he's doing that. But in the back of my head, I was like, okay, well, my medical director beat it into me that pneumo is a cardiovascular problem. It's not an airway problem. So if he's not keeled over with low blood pressure, he's probably okay for right now. So I pulled the needle out. I held it. I don't know why it was dramatic, but I was like, "Does it hurt to breathe, or can you not breathe?" And he goes, "It just hurts." I'm like, "Okay." um, so we were in the middle of butt fuck nowhere. So we called the flight medics. They had to meet us halfway, and got there. And the flight medics were like, "Oh my god, new guy. He's kind of panicking and stuff." And I'm like, "I'm really concerned for pneumo because he's a little bit older and he's a smoker." And he had an impact to the chest. But lungs sound really good for right now. And they're like, okay, yeah. And then one pipes up and he goes, I have some Q air over here. I was like, kind of rubbing it in their face. And they flew him out. He had a good outcome. His mom was on scene, which was the bagger. I even put two to two together. Like, I kind of recognized her, but it's a small town. I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
And she was almost in tears, came around the counter and gave me a huge hug. And she said, he's doing really well. I appreciate you. Which, thinking about it, like if she had just driven him to the hospital, he probably would have been fine. But I was the one there, scoop him up, give him a fuck ton of fentanyl, make sure he was kind of comfortable. New to call, sham scared. He was in the ICU for like 4 or 5 days,
Yeah. And
with
that's a
with the
scary
pneumo,
location. Yeah.
yeah, with the pneumo and chest tube. Um, but he had a really good outcome, and ever she only did it once. She After that she knew like it made us uncomfortable constantly be faint and all that kind of stuff. So she cried on my shoulder. She got out. Well, she cried on my nipple because she was like this little tiny petite thing and I'm huge. Um, but she kind of got out of her system and she says, "I just really appreciate you. Thank you so much." Went back to grabbing her groceries. Never said a thing again. She just said, "Hey, how you doing? Good to see you." And I really appreciate her. She kind of got out of her system. She did a gratefulness thing, and then didn't make a big deal after it. But that was probably one of the most awesome things I've ever been through.
Yeah, that's super cute. It's great. And great that she picked up on you being uncomfortable with that. That's really funny.
Yeah, sweetest thing in the
Uh
world.
yeah,
Couldn't tell
I
you her name,
know.
but
No, that's okay. We don't have to know each other's names, as long as you're treating people like people, then I think you're living a good life. That's a really cool story, dude. I'm kind of sad to hear that the flight medics rubbed you off that way. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
it's no big deal. Man, I fucking hate that. I hate that because with the amount of people that are on this planet, right? There is a very strong chance that we're going to roll up to a scene before EMS gets there. And that's
Hmm.
the way that I feel about it. Like if I'm rolling up to scene, I'm going to stop. I'm not an asshole. Unless there's like 30 other people there, obviously I'm not going to stop. But if I'm the first one who's witnessed it, then I'm going to stop. And fire and EMS do that too. Like, who's this bitch talking to me on the side of the road? Like, she's nothing. Get out
Hmm.
of my way. Let me do my job. But here I am getting all this information for you, trying to help you, and you're just skirting me off like no big deal. And that pings me so bad. I don't know what it is about it. And
Right.
the fact that flight medics do that too, like because we're a system that runs a ground team as well as an air team. And if I hear that there's another flight service that's treating my ground service like shit, like you bet you're gonna fucking hear from me because we're such a small group of people. I can find out who you are, who you're working with fairly
Oh
quickly.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I'm not gonna go through your supervisor. I'm going to figure out who you are, and you and I are going to have this fucking conversation because something needs to change. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? That's just my opinion. I'll get off my little soapbox there. So that is a really cool, like, proud moment. What's maybe one of the worst calls that you've ever been on before?
So it was April in 2018. I was a paid firefighter for the county, paid fire EMT, and then I also volunteered for the city of Trenton, on the side. I had just worked out at the station. My radio had gone dead because I'm not a good volunteer. And I was like, oh well, whatever. I have an app on my phone that I'm not worried about it. So the app is great, but as you know, it works on tones. So if the tones don't go off, you can't just list it in on the app. It's if the tones go off, it gets alerted. It gives you a 30-second recording of call, type, location, blah blah blah. And I remember I got to this. I was living in this really shitty little single wide I was renting out, and I remember seeing the Chiefs trucks um, fly through town. When I say fly, I mean like these guys usually go like 10 over to a house fire, and they were going double through a school zone.
Ooh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm like, there's got to be something going on. They would never do that unless they had to. So my mom was the office manager. Well, she still is office manager over at the EMS I worked at, and she's got a little radio in her room. And I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And she says, "Hey, they say there's an active shooter at this restaurant. Two officers down. Person's armed with an AR-15." I was like, "Oh shit, this is like what you prepped for. Like this is finally happening to us. Oh God." So I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go see if I can help out." And this is probably the strongest woman I've ever met in my life. She accepts what I do. My sister's a lieutenant at the sheriff's office. My sister has been a officer down before at a jail. My dad was corrections and he was army, so she's kind of dealt with this for a long time. Um, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go see if I can help out. So I went to my house. I grabbed both my pistols because I don't know what I was gonna do with them, but I was gonna shoot something. And I went and got all that. Went back to the fire station, grabbed an extra radio, and I responded to the squad. Well, by then, the entire this shooting happened maybe a mile from the sheriff's office. So the entire sheriff's office has dumps. The investigators, jail, admin, sheriff's armed with AR-15. He's not fucking around. He's a small town sheriff. And I got there, and we were staging probably about 2 blocks away. And I remember like I didn't know what else to do, so I just hopped in the back of the ambulance. Another volunteer got there, so we just made the ambulance's three-man cruise real fast. And I remember asking Spivey, he was a firefighter with me, and I was like, hey, what do you have for self-defense? And he goes, nothing. So I gave him a 380. I mean, you could shoot like a house cat with it. That's about it,
Yeah.
but it made you feel better. So I was doing that, and then I just started prepping the stretcher for a trauma, whatever trauma supplies I could think of to grab, which actually looking back on it wasn't anything useful. I was grabbing shit, and I remember them saying, signal 7 times 2. And I remember looking out through the windshield, and I could see a four-man team walking up to this car and pulling someone out. And come to find out, this guy had walked in, shot two deputies at point blank range with an AR-15. Before he did it, he opened the door, let someone walk out, being a gentleman. He had the AR-15 at his side, and before the lady could turn around and say anything, he just walked up to the deputies and popped them both. And you know, for a while after that, I was like, if I had had my radio, I would have heard the tones. I would have gotten there faster. But like they were obliterated with 5.56. There's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah, no.
Um, and I think that especially people like us, when something goes wrong, when something bad happens, we need a job. We needed something to feel like we're helping out. We'll direct traffic or pick up ice, something. So I got there, and it's just the absolute state of shock. And then in the back of my head, I'm like, so my sister hadn't been promoted yet. She was a sergeant on the road. And I started thinking, I was like, I don't know what shift she's on today. Like, I don't know what's going on. My sister-in-law also worked as a sergeant, her wife. And I was like, I don't know if she's on or whatever. Turns out it was my sister-in-law's shift. They had gone up, and she had gotten a call. She said, well, I'll just catch up with you. Don't worry. It'll take 10, 15 minutes. So before I knew that, though, one of the guys came back, Kyle, and he said, hey, they need you up there right now. And I was like, fuck. So walked up there and she was fine. But obviously she was in a lot of distress. She was upset, crying, sobbing because we ran three deputy shifts. That's it. So the entire shift minus her been wiped out. So like
Yeah.
both of her guys were killed. I remember I got there, I saw that she was alive, and I said, "Where's my sister?" And she said, "She's off duty, but she's coming in to help." And I was like, and that's again when I snapped and broke down and stuff. Um, Looking back on it, just like kind of went into automatic mode. I started doing blood sweeps on her and everything. I was like, I didn't know if she was in a gunfight. I didn't know what happened. Um, but that was a really shitty day. I knew one of the deputies, Noel, um, super solid guy. His little boy is really autistic, and he was bilingual. So when I had a problem with the neighbors' kids, they were they're Spanish speaking. They're immigrants. I called him after work one day when he got off. I was like, "Can you just come by and just help me translate real fast? I don't know what they're saying. They don't know what I'm saying." And the kids were being little shits, so they weren't translating for me. um, so I remember him rolling up like nicest fucking guy in the world, and he would do anything for anyone. Um, and it was really shitty.
That sounds shitty, dude. I'm so sorry. And that's so hard, and especially in a small community when you're losing not one person but two people, and that's fucking rough. Did they know why the shooter did that?
That's arguably the worst part. We never found a motive. Like he was an anti-cop, he was an anti-government, he was a recluse. His last interaction with law enforcement was in the 1970s for a speeding ticket. All we know is that he was spotted outside of his work earlier that day. He had been fired from somewhere like 6, 8 months earlier, I think. And when they were walking up to go talk to him, he just drove off. And they're like, okay. So he drove from there to the next town where I guess he maybe saw the deputy vehicles outside. And he goes, "Oh, this is a good way to go out." So he walked in there, popped them, and then he went outside to his car, sat down, and shot himself. Like, never found out why. Never, not an inkling of anything.
Wow. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. That is rough. And have you felt the need to seek any kind of treatment post that call or any other call?
Post that call, no. Definitely should have, but it was one of those things of, like sometimes we were pretty bad about, well, they had it worse, so why am I going to go seek help? Like, obviously, my sister-in-law was worse off. My sister was way worse off. 50 plus deputies are worse off. Um, and then other people I knew him them better, his wife, his kids, like they're worse off. One thing that I noticed they didn't do like there was no debrief, there was no CIS, and there was no nothing at all after that.
Yeah, that's rough.
Um, but um, so yeah, it was that was really shitty.
Yeah, that sounds shitty. And I know you said you didn't receive treatment after that call, but have you subsequently sought treatment in any form?
Yeah, so to make the situation even shittier, 5 months after that, I was in a fire truck crash for the city of Trenton,
Oh, wow.
going to a call again. So we're going to some shortness of breath call in the outer areas to back up in med unit, and they got on scene, and it wasn't much of anything. They could handle it just fine. And then a vehicle crash came out, and we're like, oh, okay, well let's go to that. That's in our zone. There's only two or three of us manning the station really. So we had whipped around, and they said, be advised, the car's not on fire. We have positive entrapment. So I'm like, oh shit. So the QRV was governed at 105. I know it wasn't going that fast, but I was pushing it pretty good, trying to get there. We started going around a car. Um, this is a stretch of road, State Road 26, where there's absolutely nothing. There's not a turnoff except for like three or four driveways. There's nothing except for one road called Shady Grove Road. And we started going around this lady that was slowing down, pulling to the right. And I was like, cool, I got it. She was just making a wide left turn, no signal or anything. And we came up next to her. She turned, clipped our side. It was just enough to lift us up. We lost traction. We actually went sideways into a power pole. And the power pole, not one of the small ones, but the large feeder ones, like between the two sizes. I think we measured it. It was 17 inches in diameter. I think it was one of the mid-sized ones. It hit right on the B post of the driver's side. It pushed 2 foot in, so everything on this left side was pretty much obliterated. So collarbone was broken, 14 ribs, my pelvis, my back, my neck. I had double pneumos. Um, One of the ribs like destroyed the spleen, all that kind of stuff. And to make it even more fun, we landed in 4 foot of water, and power lines were
Oh my
snapped and like hanging
God,
overhead. Yeah.
dude. Jesus.
Turns out it was a false report. The car was on fire. Everybody was out, so that was nice. um, and this is a very small county with not a lot of resources. So we have one or two guys fighting this car fire, and I actually pulled the dispatch tapes. It was a little morbid, but I think it was more so helping me kind of piece together what happened because I really didn't remember a whole lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember more sensations. I remember being cold. I remember the helicopter, like how noisy it was, but actual things that happened, I don't remember it. This is before the cops had body cams, unfortunately, too, or else there would have been like really good footage. But there was dash cam footage of one of the cars they parked, and you could see my vehicle down in the ditch. People getting there. There was confusion on scene. This is at this intersection. No, it's at this intersection. My chief got there, emergency management, deputies, fire, 2 or 3 fire agencies showed up to help out. The second the guy was, I think he was by himself putting the car fire out. The second that was done, he turned around to come help out too.
Mm-hmm.
It took probably 30, 45 minutes to cut me out of the car. We were using e-hydraulics, which failed underneath water. They were not waterproof yet. Shortly after that, Hearst came out with the waterproof ones. Thank you,
Mm-hmm.
Hearst. So if you're using waterproof e-hydraulics, you're welcome. Uh, so they took me a while. And what's really funny is they actually didn't put a seat collar on me until I was in the helicopter and I had a
Well,
broken neck. And
yeah.
they had a lot of things to worry about.
Yeah.
And you could see in the video the guy holding C-spine, you hear like the power poles crack and pop, and he would do that. Like they're watching the entire time, and finally it just pop 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 started coming down, and you can see someone like grab a hold of my hair and just snatch me out like by my hair.
Jeez, dude.
And I was a big boy at the time. I was like 215 pounds. Like I was a big boy. So they drugged me up the embankment, took me to the hospital. They decompressed me like 3 or 4 times in 15 minutes. They did all the things. I had an incredible medic named Ira Hayes in charge of it. He's now either lieutenant or captain for Dixie County Fire Rescue, one of the most amazing medics you'll ever meet in your life. He did a lot of work on me. Unfortunately, the helicopter did not have blood yet. I remember pulling the EMS report. My first pressure was like bullshit, like absolute bullshit.
Dude, that
So,
is
but
morbid. I mean, you went through the fucking ringer to get all the information and shit from that fucking call, man.
yeah, I investigated it like heavily. I pulled EMS reports. I pulled the flight medic reports. Those some bitches charged me $800 for oxygen. Like that's so messed up. What's wrong with y'all? Like,
Dude, oh, that's a whole other conversation on
oh
fucking
my gosh.
EMS and price ranges.
But the Zillow was only $27, so it's not so bad.
It's
Um,
bullshit.
and I looked at my bills like 36,000. I'm like, oh, that sucks. Workers' comp.
That's funny. Did you get in trouble at all for going the speed that you were going?
I did not.
Oh, that's
I
good.
don't think we actually had a specific policy about it. It's the speed needs to match the emergency, pretty much.
Did you
So
did you create a new policy because of
not
that?
that time,
No, oh
but
God.
but there are many policies named after me at Gilbert County Fire Rescue. Um, but nothing really happened. FHP found the other driver at fault. I don't know how it is in other states, but if someone is passing you, they have the right of way until they've completed their pass, and then you can move off and turn or whatever. So the other driver was cited. A lot of people ask me, like, do you have any ill will or anything? Absolutely not. This is a single mom working at working in Gainesville. She's coming home. She made a very, very simple, stupid mistake. She had no ill will, and I actually pulled her 911 call, and that I had to listen to it 3 or 4 times to like stop crying halfway through because
Oh,
her only concern was, you know, she said, I don't think they're all right. And the dispatcher said, why do you think that? She said, they're not responding to the people talking to them. And she said, I'm so scared. So her only concern was our welfare.
yeah.
So she made a small mistake.
At least she like called 911. At least she got like she figured out what was happening and she had the wherewithal to actually call.
She did this poor thing. Like three or four people called 911 all at once. We only have three dispatchers. The first time she called, it just rang and no one picked up.
Holy shit, dude. That fucking surprises me so much. It is nuts that you can fucking call 911 and nobody answers.
Yeah, and they're all taking calls all at once, trying to pin down where this is. And now you have one dispatcher running a fire, and now they're calling power company. Oh, we need a helicopter. Okay, do this. Okay, I'm directing this. Like the amount of things that our dispatchers have to do is insane.
Yeah.
It's incredible. They're an amazing team.
That's fucking. So
Um,
do you have any permanent damage from that event?
Not specifically. If I start running again, I was never like an avid runner, but I would run like 2, 3 miles a day and stuff.
I was never an avid
If I
runner, but
if
I ran 2 or 3 miles
I was
a
never an
day. Okay.
avid runner, as in like 2 or 3 miles a day, 10-minute miles. Like I was not that person pushing 7-minute miles or nothing like
Okay.
that. So I used to do that. If I go over probably 5, 6 miles a week now, even just hiking and stuff, like I get this horrible pain in my pelvis. I'm prone to upper back pain and neck pain, so wearing an air pack for a long time is really hard. Like through more than one or two bottles, like my back is shot for a week. Um,
Yeah,
my left side, I don't have full range of motion, so I can't do a put. I can do bench press, but not a push up. That's weird.
that is weird.
Um, and then to this day, if I sneeze really hard, it feels like someone's stabbing me with a hot poker in my ribs. I don't know what that's
Jesus.
about, but I mean, like I can still fight fire. I can still do my job. And people are like, "Oh, do you have any after effects?" I'm like, I'm about 90%, and I tell everyone, like, I can walk, my dick works, I'm alive. I
That's all you need, right? That's all you
seriously,
need.
like, it could be a lot worse. Like people have gotten paralyzed from less. So
Yeah. How long were you out of service for?
I was in the hospital about 3 weeks. I two ICU stays. I actually went to work after about 6.5 months.
That is
Wait,
fucking nuts, dude. You are
yeah, okay.
crazy.
They told me 2 weeks to heal, and I'm like, I'm so fucking bored. I'm going to commit workplace violence if I don't go back on a truck somewhere.
Yeah.
So, and then workers' comp. So, like, if I wanted to get a bullshit job, bartending or bagging, I couldn't do it. So, it was one of those things that, like I had to go back to work, or I was going to go nuts, and it was for my mental health at that point.
Yeah. So
But the
you did seek treatment after that, like some form of mental health
uh,
treatment.
no.
Oh my God, dude, you're a
Okay,
cluster,
bear
man.
with me because I wasn't having issues. I developed some anxiety September of 18. So I'd be sitting there watching TV and my heart would pound and I would get elevated pulse rate and but nothing else, no flashbacks, no nightmares, no nothing. So I didn't worry about it. Um, and I talked to my doctor and chose not to do medication. We just kind of did some deep breathing exercises and it was fine. It was the end of it. Fast forward to late 2022. Me and my partner Creech, we are transporting a decompression sickness patient, a diver, and things like that can go south kind of fast. So we load him up. We're going to take him over to Shands. We'll probably transfer him, I think, to hyperbaric or whatever. So we're going that way. We're going southbound at I-75. I don't know how much you know about Interstate 75 in Florida, but between Lake City and Ocala is like one of the most deadly stretches of interstate in the U.S. It's shit. So of course I get on the interstate, and I'm in the left lane. I max out the truck. Max out was like 80 miles an hour. Nothing crazy. So we're going, and then all of a sudden it sounded like a frag grenade went off outside the truck. Um, the right officer side tire blew out, going 82 miles an hour. Um, this is not a small truck. The box was taken from an international chassis, those big semi ones, and it was slapped onto a F550 chassis. And it's a great truck. Like it's absolutely amazing. Lots of room to work around in, but it is a bitch of a truck. It's like 7 or 8 tons unloaded. So when it went off, it was like a bomb going off. There was the shrapnel came off of it, hit the windshield, hit the box. I mean, like it honestly felt like someone had shot an RPG at the vehicle. So almost fly off the road. And of course, it's on that one stretch of road where you're going, and then there's a natural depression in the terrain, and it's a guardrail, and we're before the guardrail, of course. So the ditch is like 15 feet down. So it's yanking me over to the right, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to get aggressive, or we're gonna go down into a ditch. And my partner is 7 months pregnant in the back. Like this
Oh
is
no. Yeah.
yeah, like looking back on it, I've actually had a lot of traumatic experiences.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, like I should probably like simmer down and like go work at a primary care office or something,
A
but nah,
paint
fuck
shop.
that. Something. So I remember like getting to the ditch and I was like, all right, you know what? I'm just gonna flip it because we're not gonna roll. We're a big ass truck. We're gonna go on our side. We're gonna slide. I'm like, I'll take that. So I yank it. It doesn't flip somehow, and we just stay like in the emergency lane. I get down to like 10, 15 miles an hour, and I called up to my partner in the back. Thankfully, she is stupid like safety oriented. She's already sat down, put her seatbelt on for the ride. So like, she's like, I ran out of things to do. I'm just gonna sit here. So she's a very smart medic. Um, got down to like 10 miles an hour. I call back, hey, we're good, we're good. More so talking to myself.
Yeah.
When I finally stopped, before I even came to a complete stop, I was on the radio saying, "Go, Chris from Medic One. I need another ambulance." And that is when I had my first full blown panic attack. I mean, like I could not breathe. I was freaking the fuck out. Um, Somehow I managed to like calm myself down for about a minute or so, and of course she's going through the window. You okay? You okay? You okay? I'm about to punch your pregnant ass and put you in labor, girl. Like, stop. Hang on.
Give me a minute.
So, so told dispatch stand by, and they could hear like the stress in my voice. Like, okay, finally controlled myself. Told him what had happened. I need another ambulance from Alachua County. Alachua County came to pick him up. Transport. She transported with them because we're a little more advanced than they are. They're more urban based and we're more rural based. And she already had everything, so just transported with them. She continued patient care, and I waited on the tow truck. And that's where I sat there. I was like, that was a problem. And that's when I put an application in for an urgent care center.
Oh, okay, now that
Um,
makes sense. Moving
yeah,
into a different service.
yeah. After that, I did not have a really good relationship with the chief. Um, in my own personal opinion, he had been distancing himself from us a lot. He had gotten the power in the small town, and then like after that, like we didn't matter much. So I never followed my chain command with mental health. I never did any of that. Looking back on it now, I could have got workers' comp. I could have done this, could have done that, but I never went that route. I just quit EMS. I was like, I'm done. I'm so done with this shit. So I got out, ended up having a psychiatrist, counselor, all that kind of stuff.
Good. At least you were able, at least you got to the point where you recognized that you needed it and you did seek that assistance that you needed. So that's fucking fantastic. Uh, Man, you've had some crazy stories. I really appreciate
Yeah.
that you shared those with us, and I'm so glad that you're able to sit here today and share those stories with us. So I really appreciate that. I just want to give you the opportunity to talk about anything that you feel like we didn't talk about, or if there's anybody that you want to shout out, or anything for the next few minutes.
Well, I know that after the introduction, everyone's going to have questions about Ukraine. Um,
Yes,
so we can just hit that rabbit hole.
let's do it.
The full invasion started in February of 22. I was like, oh, I'm going to go help. And for the first several weeks, it looked like Ukraine wasn't going to do well.
Yeah.
They got to the suburbs of Kiev. They were rapidly advancing this and that, and then we saw them stall, and then they pulled out of the north. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, did the second most powerful army in the world just get bested by some backwoods Slavic tribe? They did. Okay, and we all knew it was going to turn into something for the long haul, right? So I told myself, I was like, all right, I'll give it a year, and if I still want to go, I'll explore it. So February 23 came around, war still going on, and they're playing counteroffensive. I'm like, oh yeah, they're gonna beat their asses. They don't need me. Counteroffensive failed, and I know there's a lot of political stuff like it didn't fail. It fucking failed, unfortunately. And after that, I had just started critical care school. When all this was happening, I had gone to urgent care, and then I was with an IFT company called AmeriPro Health. For anyone out there that wants a agency to work with that's private, for profit, and still manages to give really good care and treat its employees really well, make sure you apply to AmeriPro Health. I had a really negative a view of private healthcare because I just seen the worst of it. I got off on time almost every single day. I got bonuses for how many calls I ran, and the number one priority of them was patient care. So if you want to do that, AmeriPro Health. So I was working for them, and I told myself like, all right, I'll do critical care school, but I won't go until after critical care school, so I can get into a CASVAC job or something high level. And I applied to the Legion, didn't hear anything. I'd done these routes. So I did what any good EMS would do. I did networking. So I asked a buddy who asked a buddy who asked a buddy who asked probably like 13, 14, 15 people. And I finally got in contact with this guy. And I should have, like, the warning bell should have gone off when this dude, I found he was a Latvian mercenary named Ghost. I was like, that's a red flag.
It should have been a red flag. Yeah, for sure.
It's a red flag, as red as they come. So I had broached the subject with my mother before. Um, she in the first words were like, no, no. I was like, okay, but like, what if it's like in a safe area? And she goes, there's not a safe area. I was like, safer area, less bad. And I think she and my dad kind of figured out like they weren't going to stop me because I am just as hard headed as they are.
Hmm.
So they finally swapped into, okay, well, what can we do to help you and make you as safe as possible? So we did donations. Like the community really stepped up. They found I was doing it. They sent money. They bought me pouches. They brought me stuff for my uniform. They bought like all kinds of stuff. They were
That's
amazing.
really cool.
Um, Went over there. I spent a week in Denmark first with a buddy named Ryan, who is a Danish police officer. We met in a Facebook fitness group, probably 2017, 2018. It's a cool guy. Stopped there for a week, just kind of have a little relaxation before I signed my death warrant, and went over to Ukraine. And I got this little small group. I will absolutely never give out their real names because the Russians do not play. They do cyber attacks. They will kill people. I'll put it like this: we're in Dnipro. They sent 3 cruise missiles after a hotel because there's one American in it. So
Wow.
if you are a foreigner, you are a prize target. So they were doing some training for the Marines down in Kherson. After that, we had to go to Ternopil. Ukraine's very different in the sense that they have a lot of Soviet bureaucracy left over, and they're actively being invaded. Their country's at war, and it's taking them weeks to do paperwork. It was horrible. So the first place that we went to was Kurakov, and I was trained to be a soldier. I was going to be a combat medic. Did not get to do evacuations like I wanted to. It's very difficult to actually do that. You have to know someone or blow someone, to be honest. But I will tell you that the individual Ukrainian is an incredible person. They have a huge hospitality belief around them. These people gave me clothes, food, water. They would do anything for any stranger. So the people are worth fighting and dying for, in my opinion. But I'll get off that soapbox. So we got there. They had suffered about 50% casualties. There was not left anything left to save. So we left there, and then we're getting with a new contract. Spent a month or two waiting on paperwork, and we did what any good soldier do. We went to one of the nicer cities, Ternopil, and we drank and we partied and we hung out. Like that's what soldiers do.
Why not?
Finally got orders. I can't. No, I can't share where it was. And we were doing some stuff with them, and I got a pretty rude awakening. I've met some of the most amazing, selfless people in my life in Ukraine. These people were ready to come to a people they did not know to die for them.
Yeah.
100% ready. A lot of people are running from something, running from things in their country. The Foreign Legion, while it says it does background checks, absolutely does not. It's like the French Foreign Legion. You can be a serial killer, a convicted one. They won't ask questions because you're ready to die for their country. They don't care.
Yeah.
So you will meet some of the most amazing people, and you will meet some of the absolute worst humans alive. Um, Someone tried to kill me once. That was on my own side. He tried to shoot me with an AK, and I was forced to uh, beat him pretty badly. And that was a friendly, and that was a British guy. The other one, I wouldn't go along with him pretty much beating up random people in a bar. So he tried to plot to have me stabbed and killed on a train and tossed off the tracks. Like
Jesus.
this, these were real people. This wasn't a movie or anything like that. And I went to bed every night, wondering and like if I'm gonna get
Is
stabbed at
this
night.
it? Yeah. Jeez.
Um, but on the other hand, I met some of those amazing people. I felt very fulfilled in my job. I rarely ever got to do like the really cool stuff like you see comic medics do, like return fire, returning it on. Like
Yeah.
it's 99% of it is primary and urgent care. So I treated pneumonia, I treated smoke inhalation, I treated a lot of different things. I told someone how to excise a hemorrhoid because he wouldn't let me do it. Like I just um
That's pride.
Some of the crazier, yeah, some of the crazier stuff that I did was they had very loose control of narcotics in their hospitals, and they had a bunch of fentanyl, and I needed some for my soldiers, and I stole fentanyl. I stole midazolam. I mean, they don't provide medics with a whole lot. They'll give you some tourniquets and tell you go figure it out.
Yeah.
So most of the stuff that I had was borrowed, bartered, and bribed. Like I bribed people to get what I needed, unfortunately. Um, and kind of keeping your own morals is very, very difficult when you're in a situation like that. To
Mm-hmm.
this day, I have to remind myself when I go to a patient's house that no, you can't go through their shit looking for things. Like, and I never like look for jewelry or nothing. Like, I still find myself to this day like noting where water supplies is and how much food you have, and seeing how many people can that feed all at once. Like, and then like seeing my egress routes if we get spotted by a drone, if we have to do this, have to do that. You don't really come out of that unscathed, you know.
No, not at
Um,
all.
People always ask me like, "Will you go back to Ukraine?" I'm like, "No, no." And I got buddies in my old position. Like where I was actually a pretty quiet sector. I was lucky.
That's good.
It's gone really hot lately. For several weeks, they've been increasing artillery, drones. They're softening them up for a big push. And I've got buddies I went to basic with that are stuck there. And one medic has been killed. One medic has a TBI from artillery being too close, and one was promoted, so they don't have any field medics in that company at all anymore. They have a couple of guys with TCCC classes.
That's nuts.
Um, so like every few days, I'm on the phone with them, like, okay, this is how you make a pill pack. This is when you take the pill pack. This is how you do a tourniquet. This is how you do, and like, not a single one has ever said, "I wish you were here." Like they never do that.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah, when people are done with Ukraine, like it's very respected. Like, okay, you did your part, you're done. Like we even tell new people, like, I want to go to Ukraine. No, you're good. Don't start. Like,
Yeah.
and if they won't listen to you, of course, help them out and stuff.
Yeah.
But when people say I want to go to Ukraine, I'm like, no, don't do it. So I've got two buddies, just kids. They're both 19 years old, Australians. Um, Super solid guys. You can count on for anything, but they're in a 200 meter wide area by themselves right now defending it. And
That's fucking crazy.
yeah, and like every day I have to remind myself like it's not worth going back. It's not worth going back. Not worth going back. But I know when they eventually get killed, which they probably will, unfortunately, like yeah, it's gonna weigh on me because I've already had several get killed.
Yeah. That's rough. That's so rough. And you can't tell them no. They're gonna do what they're gonna do, unfortunately.
They are.
Yeah.
One, I think he's starting to see the light a little bit. I was like, because I told all of them, I was like, I don't care about funds or anything. If you guys decide that you want to leave Ukraine, I will make sure it happens. I will come to fucking Ukraine and make you get and help you get out. I don't care. And I told one, I was like, hey, when you guys repel this next assault and it kind of quiets down a little bit, why don't you break contract and you just come to my house for a couple months and just chill out? I'll sleep on my couch. I'll feed you, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he said that yeah, he thinks he wants to. So
Good. That's good. That's good that you're advocating for your buddies and everybody that you're helping take care of. I mean, that's just
yeah.
so far and few between.
So I know one of the questions is like, has COVID-19 affected your agency permanently? And it definitely has. But I think the thing that affected me most of all was being in Ukraine on the front lines. It changes your entire mindset just so you'll survive the next day.
Yeah, that's fucking nuts, dude. That is crazy. And I've heard that being in that kind of a situation does permanently change your whole outlook when you're literally just living to survive. Yeah, that's fucking crazy, dude.
Um,
And I wish we had a whole other hour to talk about it because it's
yeah,
got a lot of really good information about it. I'll have to have you back on. But I do want to say thank you so much for coming out, and the stories that you shared today were absolutely phenomenal, and I'm super proud of who you are and where you are today, man. It's really impressive the things that you've gotten to do and that you're still out here despite having broke half your body. It's really cool. So thank you so much for coming on.
yeah, I appreciate it. I think the biggest things I struggle with currently is I feel like I haven't done enough, and I've done more than most people I've met. And in the back of my head, I'm like, not enough. Do something else.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's all of us.
Use it as a tool, but don't let it overcome you, right? Like you are enough. You have done enough. Don't let that be something that controls you.
Yeah, I got you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, dude. I appreciate you coming on today. I hope you have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Have a good night.
Be safe. Bye. Thanks for tuning in. If you're enjoying the show and want to show your support, be sure to check out the Noon merch store on Bonfire. Find the link in the description below. Also, if you have any guest suggestions or if you're interested in being a guest on Noon yourself, visit the website at www.samspursuit.com to get in touch.